Welcome back, internet friends, to the 8th episode of the PixelPlay podcast, the weekly podcast where two grown-ass men get together, chat about everything they love, hate, and everything going on in the world of video games. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm a little concerned. I mean, I'm pretty sure after last week's hosting job that I did that you legitimately muted my mic this entire time. I was wondering why I couldn't say anything. I think somebody got a little bit jealous after the last episode.
What? No, that's not me. I ain't about that. But
no,
don't look into
never do such a thing.
No, Adam, I barely know how to run this podcast, let alone mute your mic.
Well, you said it first, not me.
We know that you are the technical brains behind this.
I mean, the audience might not know that.
Well, they do now, so.
Yeah, I just tipped the hand. Now you can't claim anything anymore. I'm going to keep the copy of this clip, so just in case you ever decide to change your mind.
Yeah, I don't know what I've done. I think I've made a grave mistake. I think I'm going to have to edit this part out, but the problem is I don't know how to edit stuff either, so.
The problem is I'm the editor.
Yeah, once again, the curtain has been raised. Adam is basically the technical one behind everything here. I am just the talking head.
Look, I'm just saying, there might be a clip on the YouTube channel, PixelPlay Podcast. You can search on YouTube. I don't think we've still got the unique URL option yet. But I'm not saying that there might be a 6-hour extended play clip of just you saying, "I'm not the technical brains," over and over and over. I might not do that.
But you'll just keep it in your back pocket for the day that you do need it.
Yeah, just in case.
This is the kind of professional relationship that we keep here. So, Adam...
Wait, professional?
I use the term very loosely. I figure the fact that we're both wearing clothes is how it keeps it professional.
That is a good point.
So, Adam, I don't know if you are aware, but this week has been kind of a slow week in terms of big video game news. Anything on your horizon? Anything that you've seen that you want to chat about today?
I can't even make one up on the spot.
Nah, it's pretty dead this week. So I was thinking what we could do with this week's episode. We'll kind of just use it as a, just kind of shoot the shit kind of episode. We'll kind of just chat about stuff that we want to talk about, not necessarily anything topical in terms of gaming news, but we can kind of talk about things that we're interested in, topics that we want to go over, and just kind of just get to know each other a little bit better. So kind of just the filler episode of this season.
It's like a rainy day almost. It's like, look, we're stuck indoors. There's nothing going on outside, so we're just gonna have some fun talking about the good old days. I guarantee you, the episode that we always say, a bunch of grumpy old men talking about stuff. This is probably gonna be the first one of those actual days where it's just gonna be like, man, it used to be so good back in the day.
Back in my day, we only had one analog stick, and we liked it that way.
Back in my day, we didn't even have analog sticks.
Yeah. So, Adam, anything you want to start off with? Anything on top of mind?
Well, I mean, considering that, I guess another curtain I'm about to peel back is we don't actually know each other personally. This literally just came over a Reddit post.
Yeah. So you know what? Let's actually start there and how this podcast got started. Yeah. So, I mean, Adam and I, we get along really well. But yeah, we've actually never met in person before. Adam, do you want to
kind of our first full conversation minus our mini one before we did the first episode was the first episode, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, it really was, and I'm kind of not surprised, but it's kind of great how much chemistry and synergy we have, considering it was just I had posted on Reddit one day that, hey, I'm looking to start a video game podcast, and you were like, yeah, I'll help you.
Yeah, begrudgingly.
I've got my own podcast or whatever.
Me with my not gonna tout myself, but me with over 100 subscribers on my YouTube channel, CSRadical. I'm I'll help this Adam. Peon out. I'll come down from my golden throne to help the peasants.
Well, it's appreciated. Just curious, where are those subscribers here, Adam?
I also can't make anything up on the spot on that one.
Yeah, no. So what had happened is this pandemic, I was just looking for a little bit of a creative outlet and looking to just kind of start something, and I'd put a post on Reddit saying, hey, does anyone want to make a short, 1 hour gaming related podcast, and Adam was was one of the people that responded, and yeah, we just kind of said, yeah, let's try it, and now we are 8 episodes in, and I think it's going really well.
I mean, we haven't gotten canceled yet. It must be
That's
doing
true.
something right.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to get canceled when nobody listens. So
Shh. I thought that was the one curtain we agreed not to peel back.
To those people who do listen to the show, we appreciate and love you. Thank you for sticking around.
And to everybody else, I'm crying on the inside.
So Adam, you're right. So we actually haven't really gotten to know each other much. So I figured, yeah, today might be a good episode for us to kind of go in a little bit deeper about who we are, our gaming backgrounds, our gaming history. So what do you want to know?
Well, let me ask you the first and most prevalent question that I think most gamers would think of first is like, what is kind of like your earliest memory in gaming? Like, what's the first games you think of that you were growing up with?
So I remember I remember having an NES at my house. I am the oldest child in my family, so I didn't have any older brothers or sisters who kind of got me into gaming, but my parents somehow, for some reason, because they're not gamers, we had an NES at my house. And this was back before 94, because I was living at I was living at the first house or the second house that I remember. And I was probably 3 or 4, and we had an NES, and the three games, I guess, that I remember is I remember playing Duck Hunt. I remember playing Mario Bros, like the original Mario Bros, and Paperboy. Those were the 3 games that I remember playing a lot of as a kid. And like I said, I was pretty young. I wasn't really good, but I mean, Duck Hunt is pretty simple in terms of just point at the screen and just make it flash.
I mean, it's still a better 3 first ones than I'll come up with, because my
what was your
first
first
3. Well, I had a Sega Genesis was my first one, and I had a pretty strange mishmash of games. I had Tommy Lasorda's Baseball. Rest in peace, Tommy Lasorda, who passed away last year, I believe. I'm hoping I'm not mixing up my dates. And it's not even a good baseball game, unfortunately. So it's not like I got like, the classic like World Series baseballs or like some like, decently, MLB affiliated one at that. No,
Yeah.
It was just this really like weird arcadey one. I had also, I think it would have been the 32X as that attachment was. I guess like, and the 2 that I had there was ice hockey, plain old ice hockey, and Rambo 3 for some reason.
So wait, you had a Sega Genesis and you didn't even have Sonic?
I didn't get Sonic until much later, and I don't even own the original. When I had Sonic, I had 2 and 3 of all things, but never had the original in my house. If I ever played the original, it was by renting it. But I really sit there and think about it. I'm like, wow, like the 3 earliest games I can remember are 2 sports games and a game I probably shouldn't have been playing at like 4 or 5 years old in Rambo 3. Even though it's the most pixelated shooty bang bang thing, it's still a shooting game that me at 4 or 5 is playing a lot.
Yeah, but remember it was the 90s. Like basically any video game was designed for kids and nobody cared.
Well, Mortal Kombat hadn't happened yet, so yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Did you play Mortal Kombat as a kid? Like, were you allowed to play it at your house?
Never at my house. My parents, again, this is the weirdness of how things were. I had Rambo in my house, but my parents were also the type that like wouldn't even let me watch Power Rangers because the sparks were too like violent. I guess. Although my dad really was okay with me watching wrestling, which shows you the weird, I guess, double-edged sword, not double-edged sword, double standard that my family had. I guess, guys beating the shit out of each other, for reals, totally, guys, countered more than a bunch of people in really tight leotards fighting a giant, clearly fake plastic monster with fake swords.
Yeah. The thing I used to watch Power Rangers as a kid, and I love the fact that no matter what they're fighting, there's always sparks and fireworks. It could be like,
and all right, they always explode at the end.
We're going to fight people made of mud, and somehow there's explosives going off.
Apparently, everything that crash lands on Earth that isn't from this planet just is literally their heart is TNT.
Yeah, exactly. I think that checks out. That is facts.
Except for Rita, apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, she never died, so how would you know?
She was free NT. That's what she was.
Yeah. So your first console was the Sega Genesis. Now, was that you? Like, Was it like an older brother or sister who had it, or did your parents
I
just get it
think
for
it
you?
might have been like maybe an uncle or somebody because I don't remember the origins of where we got it from. I'm the oldest as well, so it's not like something that I actively went at. It's just it was always there. Maybe it was donated by somebody. I have no idea.
Yeah. So let me ask you then. I mean, we talked about first console. Let's go over, like, we talked a little bit, I think, about this at one point. What are your top games? Like, what are your? Let's do top 5 games of all time.
Oh my god, put me on the spot. Shit.
This is basic 101 questions here, buddy. Let's
Well,
see those
yeah, but they're
fake
always
gamers.
changing. I'm a good gamer. I don't just stick to my 5 games of old. Um, Number one is still Final Fantasy X,
Okay.
just because like it's the pure nostalgia. 2 would probably be Mass Effect 2. I really do think that that's like the best, I guess, shooter I think I've ever done. 3, ooh, probably Chrono Cross.
Okay.
And I know that's going to piss off a lot of Square Enix fans because it'd be like, wait, you're putting Trigger above Cross? Yeah, I'm that one guy, I think. 4 and 5 are just constantly changing. So right now, 4 is probably Trails of Cold Steel 3, which I talked about a couple of shows ago when I was doing my review of the 4th game.
Yep.
And then 5, probably right now, is probably Horizon Zero Dawn. But it's an ever constantly changing thing based on, what am I feeling right now? Am I feeling like something recent? Am I feeling nostalgia? Like, because I could be putting Super Mario World anytime in there. I could put Perfect Dark in there. Like, I can go all over the spectrum.
Yeah.
So, but realistically, if you're asking for my all-time favorite, it's Final Fantasy X still to this day. And it's really hard to see if anything can ever top it. But then again, you say that about anything, and then suddenly something tops it, and then you're like, all right, now this one's the one that's never going to get beaten.
Yeah. I think for me, I know what number 1 is, and I mean everybody knows what number 1 is. I'm going to put 5 out there that I like, I don't have a particular ranking unless I say otherwise, but I would say probably Horizon Zero Dawn is probably number 5. I would say Splinter Cell Chaos Theory number 4, and it's just, I love that Splinter Cell series, and I wish it would come back. Number 3, I think would be. No, sorry, let's bump it. So number 4 would probably be Hitman Blood Money. That game is fantastic and it's so much fun. I just remember playing it constantly as a kid and just going through and just murdering everybody. It didn't even matter. I wasn't going after anyone in particular. The contract was just, he ended up falling in once. Eventually I got to him. But yeah, Hitman Blood Money is a good one. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, number 3. Fallout 3 would probably be number 2. I love post-apocalyptic games, and that was sort of the first one for me that I played that was like open world, post-apocalyptic, and it felt like just exploring a wasteland, and I thought that was really, really cool.
I remember playing Fallout originally and being like, I don't know what the big deal is about this game. And then Fallout 3 came out, and I'm like, oh, this is much better.
See, I played Fallout 3, like, I didn't even buy it when it first came out. I bought it, like, EB Games was having like a game day sale and ended up buying the collector's edition for, I don't know, like, I forget how much I paid for it, but I got it on sale, the collector's edition. I put it in. I'm like, this is sick. And then number 1 is Last of Us. I've talked at length about why I love Last of Us. I think the story's awesome. I like the fact that it is a zombie story that doesn't feel like a zombie story. Gameplay is I know some people don't like it, but I like it. I think it's just perfectly done. To me, that's a game that I can pick up and play at any time. So
I guess I got to be the one person that's like, yeah, I didn't care for it much. Although I will admit, like, I do talk about the gameplay a lot because I do think it is a little bit rough. I think, though, as a core, I really just don't attach to depression very much when it comes to games. Like, games that are meant to be, like, very evocative, very, I guess very dark and, like, deep. I generally don't attach to those a lot. I kind of like to just really sit back and enjoy myself. Like, I'm a big anime guy as well. If I was really to put a percentage to it, I think 90 to 95% of all the shows I watch are comedies. Because I tend not to associate very much. Like, I see everybody who's like, oh, big into Game of Thrones or big into say like Black Mirror or Stranger Things, like all those things I hear, I'm like, but it's not going to make me smile or laugh. Why would I want to watch that?
See, I like those drama shows. Like I was into Game of Thrones. I liked Black Mirror, like The Witcher, like those kind of like, not to say like those are super dark, but I like something with like a little bit of heaviness uh and for me, like I love that end of the world kind of stuff. So we watched my wife and I, we watched like Jericho at one point, and like that was really cool. The 100, that was really good for a while. Like those kind of end of the world shows, I'm just a sucker for. And so having a good story, like especially in a video game, to have such a good story, even if it's like generic as hell, like just it's a like a basically like a hero's journey kind of thing. So like I don't know, for me it resonated, and it was something really interesting to listen to or to watch, and I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited for that HBO TV show.
Well, also for me as well, it means a lot when I do end up coming out of the woodwork and be like, hey, like this really dark show or this dark film or dark game I really, really like. It's usually a testament to that. There are guys out there that, like, game wise, don't like, say, JRPGs, but if you ever hear that person say that a JRPG that they played is actually not too bad, that means it's a pretty damn good game. It must be. So, I mean, like, for example, I like a lot of fun, crazy, stupid action movies, so of course, naturally, I'm inclined to like, superhero movies. But then a movie like Joker comes out, and if I say Joker's really good, even though that movie is fucking dark and depressing,
Yeah,
it really does mean something in the end. So I find that it's. I never mean when I say that, oh, I don't like dark or depressing stuff, that it means like, oh, all that stuff's garbage. It just means it usually takes a little bit more to get my foot in the door on these kinds of things.
it's just not your default. Like it's not what you're inclined to go towards.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I'm not always like the everything has to be dark and serious. Like I love a good comedy or like a lighthearted game, but I just sometimes like that deeper story that you sometimes get from more darker games. So, and like I said,
Well,
anything that's
it all makes us
post-apocalyptic.
a gamer nonetheless. That's the important part.
For sure.
Speaking of the
Speaking.
dirty G word.
Mhm.
So here's an interesting question that I always see posed, and some people have trouble answering it, some people don't. What do you think is the first moment that you ever had that kind of made you think like, oh, this is like I'm into this forever kind of thing? Because some of us when we were kids, like we just played games because they were there and they were fun. Sometimes you played with friends, but there comes that point where you realize that this isn't just like something fun. Like this is something that you are kind of like emotionally invested or attached to, depending on however you look at it.
I don't know what the moment was because I've always sort of been into video games. Like I said, I had Mario as a kid, had the Super Nintendo, had an N64. Like I've always had a console in my like life growing up. I think it was probably in high school I started getting into it, and then when I started university, that's when I really got into it and started watching like E3s and stuff like that. So I because I had in high school, I had a gaming PC that I used for a little bit, and I had bought a used Xbox from this girl in art class, and it was great. I paid like 150 bucks, and I got like a bunch of stuff. It was great. But I the first time I was sort of on a new console with everybody that I was aware of was the PS3, because I met my wife at university, and she had a PS3 that she never used, and I was just kind of like, this is just being wasted. And I remember playing like Ratchet and Clank and Resistance and all those kind of games, and that's I think where I kind of got into. I kind of moved from just like playing video games to being part of the gaming culture, if you would. So like I started, you know, like reading news articles and getting into that kind of stuff, watching E3. That's where I kind of went from just playing a game to I'm into the whole culture and interested in the industry. And yeah, that's where I kind of got in deep. Before then, I was always playing video games. So like, because I remember playing Mercenaries back in university before I met my wife, and I remember playing like Splinter Cell on PC. I remember playing like I always remember playing video games, but that's where I really no, you know what? It was in high school. Sorry, it was because I remember our school library had a gaming magazine, and I was like really into it, and I was reading gaming magazines, and I was starting to look online on the web. So I guess yeah, I guess it was high school.
The old
And
memories of like Nintendo Power and PSM
yeah,
and
yeah. Well, they had EGM. It was the magazine that they had, and I remember like I remember reading like articles for like Haze and stuff, and I like to draw, and I remember being in high school and just drawing pictures of like advertisements and drawing characters from the games and stuff. And honestly, I think that's how I kind of got started. My dad had bought me a player's guide for Mortal Kombat on the N64, and I remember just tracing out characters on a piece of paper, like having the paper over it and just drawing it. And I think that's how I got a little bit of a head start in terms of art. So it's kind of always been there, and but I think it kind of ramped up as I got older.
yeah, I mean, for me personally, I can come back to about two moments pretty early on in my childhood that I kind of think were really like turned the switch of like, okay, no, this is my thing. It also helped a lot, I guess, to my detriment that I didn't really have much of a social life in school. I grew up in a pretty small town, so it was each grade had like one or two classes max, depending on what it was. So whoever you were really with in your grade, like you knew everybody, and I'd been there my entire life. I didn't move until grade 8. So for basically 8 years of school, the same people were always in the same class, and I ended up being the bully target back then. So I didn't really have a lot of friends. So it was really easy for me to get caught up in just being able to sit by the TV and just kind of play a lot because it's not like there was anything else I could do. And depending on how old I was, my younger brother wasn't really old enough to do much with either. So the two moments that stand out, there's one that I know is what really clicked with me, and then there's the one that I look back on and be like, oh, secretly, this was probably it. The one that as a kid made me realize that, oh God, like, this is a thing. I remember back in, here we go with the back in my day conversation. You used to just go to stores and rent video games for a couple of days.
Hmm.
So I don't know what possessed me. Actually, I know exactly why I was possessed me. I was like 8 years old, and I loved the Magic School Bus, and there was a Magic School Bus video game on Sega Genesis.
Nice.
And it's a garbage game when I think about it now, but because I've gone back and replayed it through an emulator just to see, I'm like, God, only a kid could like something like this. Because it's the most basic, overly repetitive thing I've ever seen. And it takes about, I don't know, like maybe 4 to 6 hours to finish. And I remember getting the game and literally not putting it down until I was done, which is pretty abnormal for me back then because, parents would put a stop to that stuff. But company was over, so they were too busy talking, and I literally just sat upstairs all night playing Magic School Bus and finished the damn game. To the point that, like, just as people were leaving, I was done the game, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that there were people downstairs.
So is that the first game you can remember beating?
I think I've beaten games before that to, like, various extents, but in terms of, like, just a straight start to finish, that was easy. That was easily, like, the first one. Because I'm sure at some point I beat a Sonic game, but that was over like months and months and months. Because I was really weird too. I would play Sonic 3, which falls into my second moment that I kind of realized that, holy shit, I was a hardcore gamer without even knowing it. I didn't like to play Sonic 3 with the save files. Because it was a new feature in Sonic 3. You could have save files. I refused to use them. I guess because growing up with Sonic 2, it was just like, no, you keep going until you get a game over. So I just refused. So by doing so, I was constantly replaying levels over and over again to the point that I'm pretty sure at like 9 or 10 years old when I was really at like my best at that game, I could have probably been like almost speed running that game with how quickly I could get through at least the first 2 to 3 levels.
You're hardcore.
Well, I think about it now, I'm like, holy shit, I refused to use save files because I just wanted to beat the game in one fell swoop as fast as I could. To the point that like I was memorizing exactly which platforms to hit in Angel Island, which specific like directions, when to stop, when to go. And I thought about it and went, holy crap. I was speedrunning before I knew what speedrunning was.
Yeah.
And here I am also saying that, man, like aside from the one time a year, or I guess the 2 times a year that Games Done Quick is on Twitch, I really don't care much for speedrunning, which is so ironic.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I that's pretty early too. Like for me, I don't remember ever beating a game until I started gaming in high school. And I think it was Splinter Cell. That was the first game for me that I played where I was like, yeah, like I want to play this from start to finish. And it's just because like the old games like just never captivated me enough. Like I was playing the levels and going through it, but I just never cared for like the story. And Splinter Cell for me was like the first one where, yeah, like I want to see. I want to. It felt like a movie to me, and I was like watching a movie, and I wanted to just see how it ended.
There were a lot of games out there that like I never finished, mostly because of rentals. Because my family was pretty like we weren't poor, but we really weren't like able just to have all this disposable income to just keep buying games. And games were a lot more expensive than people remember back then.
Yeah.
So if you were getting games, it was generally not the big ones. Like by the time that I got a Super Nintendo, by the time that was all done, I didn't own Final Fantasy games. I only owned Super Mario World, and I think that might have been the only major one. I had Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. But like everything else I owned was like these weird, I guess like not third party games, but I guess like fifth party games of just all these titles you've never heard of. Like I had Super Batter Up or NHL Stanley Cup, like all these weird like offshoots. Actually, that's a lie. I have Wario's Woods, the friggin' Wario version of Tetris, but other than that.
Wow. Yeah,
but
I
like,
mean, we were the same at my house. Like, it wasn't a situation where we had a crap ton of games. Like every kid pretty much growing up, or at least most kids, like it was Christmas and birthdays if I wanted a game. But I don't remember getting a lot of games brand new.
It really wasn't until N64 that I could start like asking for something at Christmas and probably getting it.
Yeah, yeah. Like for me, that was the same for me. Like I don't remember buying. I don't know if I ever bought a brand new like Super Nintendo game. And I think the first brand new game I got was when I got my N64, and that came with like Super Mario 64 and that, or I don't know if it came with it or if I got it, but I got that as a Christmas present. And then I remember I ended up buying Pokemon Stadium as well, and that was one of the first games that I got like brand new that I bought for myself. So, and I remember that night because my dad was like working, and we lived in a small town too, so like we didn't have a retail store. You had to get it like Toys R Us or something, and that was like 40 minutes away. And my dad was picking it up that night and was bringing it home after work, but he didn't get home till like 10 o'clock at night. And I was just sitting at home waiting for him to come. And then like he came home, I got the game, I opened it, and I just went straight to bed with it because it was like 10 o'clock at night. And my parents were like, okay, go to bed.
Hot take. I don't understand why Pokemon Stadium 3 has never been a thing.
Yeah, right? Like I was kind of blown away by Pokemon the Pokemon Stadium when it came out. Like it was such a good game. Like the fact that you could bring your Pokemon into the game and like battle them, like it was such a cool mechanic. And then they had all those mini games. It was a blast.
That second hot take. The mini games were better than the actual game.
That is true.
I fucking loved playing like the mini games as like a party mode where it's just
the sushi one was the best one.
Sushi one was good. I don't even remember. I'm a giant trivia nerd, so like the Pokemon trivia stuff was always my jam.
No, my sister and I would always play the Pokemon Stadium sushi game. So
I think they tried to sort of redo it when they had like the GameCube games. They had Coliseum and they had Gale of Darkness, but that's another thing too. I wish they'd start making those again because I think Pokemon itself has gotten a kind of so formulaic. Like I haven't really been interested in Pokemon since like Gold and Silver, and that's not even a nostalgia thing. Like I'm not the original 150 or the only 150. I'm not that guy, but I remember playing Ruby and Sapphire and not being too enthusiastic, and then I put it down for a while, and then finally, like I think it was around like X and Y, I think it was, where I said, you know what, I haven't touched a Pokemon game in like 10, 15 years. Let's pick up another one, see how I feel. And within an hour, I'm like, no, this is literally the same shit that I played 1,000 times when I was a kid.
See, I am a little bit more of a purist, and I had Pokemon Silver, and I was like, no, this is dumb. Like I want the original 150. Like for them to come up with a sequel and like, hey, here's a whole bunch of brand new ass Pokemon. I'm like, no, like where the hell have these guys been? I'm not gonna go for that. And they kind of lost me after that. So I was sort of one and done with Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously now it's really the kids they're caring for, but I mean there is a market there for the fans that are, much older and are still able to stick with it for whatever reason. I don't really understand why, but I mean fandoms don't work the same way that my brain does. I don't know if I'd ever call myself like a fan of anything, because what a fan is generally looked at is so much more of like not a blind follower, but someone who is literally like just they're constantly on them. Like the closest thing I think I ever came was with Final Fantasy and BioWare. But even then, like as soon as they made one mistake, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't trust you guys. Whereas You know that there are people, even to this day, who are still on the side of Square, with a lot of people who commonly think Final Fantasy hasn't been good in a long time. And
Yeah.
same goes for many other places like Nintendo. Whenever Nintendo does something stupid, they're always the first ones at the front of the line to be like, no, you just don't understand what they're trying to do. And I've never really been that guy. Like, I have really strong opinions on things, but I'm not a white knight. I'm not the first to defend anything. Just because it's like, these guys, I know that these companies don't ever give a shit about me. They just want the money that's in my pocket. So I'm smart enough to kind of just know that and be like, look, they'll be nice to me when they need to get my foot in the door. But as soon as my foot's in the door, they can shut it behind me, lock the door, and throw the key out the window, and I'm stuck. So
Yeah.
I've never really been that attached. It's just, and Pokemon is always like one of the bigger ones where I'm just like, man, I don't get why people are so into this series so many years in, because no game that I've played has lasted me 25 years like this.
Yeah. I mean, I can get it, but it's weird for me because like Pokemon is not the same game it was. Like every Pokemon like has different ones, and like you can like the formula, but it's not like the game is the same each time. I don't know. For me, I don't.
Well,
get it.
the same structure's still there. It's still the gyms. You're still going down each pathway. You're still doing random battles. Like, there's nothing really different. It's why I keep saying, like, guys, you've clearly shown that Breath of the Wild is capable on the Switch. Make a Pokemon game in that world.
Well, I think
Make one where it's just an open world walking around.
didn't they just announce that they were doing something like that, where they're doing a Pokemon Breath of the Wild kind of thing?
I think I vaguely saw it, but I didn't really look too far into it.
Yeah, I
And
remember seeing
part
it.
of part of me thought it was like so quickly rushed out in the trailer wise. I thought it was like a mobile thing for a second. So maybe it's already kind of happening, but
Well, I think they did announce it and that they're gonna do it, and I think on the paper it looks like a great idea, but from what I understand, people aren't super thrilled by like the graphics or whatever. Like it kind of looks eh.
well, you own a Switch, guys. Sorry to disappoint you, but it's the weakest one. So, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're not going there for the high performance fidelity.
I mean, if you're mad, like tell Nintendo to start making games for PC because every other company's doing it.
True. Now, what do you think of those rumors that came out that Nintendo is looking at making a more powerful version or a new version of the Switch?
I mean, they can do whatever they want, but their library still isn't that great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
like,
they might be able to get some more third-party stuff. They might be able to get like some decent hits that aren't Nintendo-based, but I mean,
is
the
anyone
company's
buying it
still
for the
going to want to
third
work
party?
with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is anyone buying Nintendo Switch for the third party games?
I mean, I guess not. But if that was the case, then why bother upgrading?
Yeah. I just
Because
like for me-
Nintendo's never really been the graphic powerhouse, so
Nope.
it really doesn't make sense to you. As long as you're making games that are fun and functional, especially, I guess maybe if they could figure out a way to just up the frames, like just upgrade to 60 frames for every game. I guess that would be something you could do. But I mean, I don't see a need for a Super Mario game to be in 4K. Like it just doesn't seem like the kind of game that does it. Now, if you're doing something like a Metroid Prime again, then it would make sense. But Metroid Prime 4 has been a thing for 15 years, and I'm pretty sure Half-Life 3 is going to come out before it at this point.
it'll be a race between the two. Now, that was gonna be like that's something like that I was gonna say is that like with Nintendo and the Switch, like it's a great console, but I feel like they're losing the momentum because like aside from when was like the last new game that they came out with? Like brand new, and it wasn't like a port.
Would it be Animal Crossing, or is there something I'm
Oh,
forgetting?
I guess yeah, Animal Crossing would be Animal Crossing I guess is the newest one, but I mean, I'm thinking about it, and like the big games that I can think of is there's Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, which came out at launch. There's Mario Tennis Aces. There's Mario Kart, which I know is sort of a port of the Wii U version. Smash Bros is also the same boat. Pikmin is a re-release. Mario 3D World, same idea. Like I just feel like they've got this momentum. They've got so many Switches in hand, and I just don't know. What
I mean,
the
I guess you
studios
could
do.
argue 3D World and Bowser's Fury, but realistically, it's a port with a little bit of DLC.
Yeah, like considering you're Nintendo and you've got these massive franchises and these massive studios, like I'm surprised they're not using this momentum to come out with like new IPs or to come out with new iterations on their franchises.
Yeah, I mean, but it was the same with the Wii and the Wii U, and it's what I warned a lot of people several times over the course of like the entire journey leading up to the Switch. It's like, guys, like, yeah, this looks like a pretty cool thing. I'm not into the mobile stuff, but that's not my thing. If you guys like playing handheld, that's your thing. But
But I
I
think
only care about this console if there's games. And Nintendo traditionally usually has some of the best games you'll get on the console, like on the market, but they come every couple of years. Like there's a lot of dead periods with it.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like this console, and it's just this is just me talking from my like gut, not necessarily coming from any sort of research standpoint, but I feel like this console has fewer exclusives like than the other consoles, and I don't know if that's just in hindsight because we have their catalog that we can look and see, but I mean, I feel like it's comparable to Wii U, but like Wii U had terrible sales, so it made sense why they weren't investing in games that were going to just sit there to die.
I mean, I'm willing to give them a pass just for now because of COVID. Because I mean, I'm looking at like the Metacritic's like all-time scores, and a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing are all from like 2018, 2019, where there's a lot. So I do wonder if maybe it's just a lot's been pushed in the last like 12 months. Because I keep looking, and the only thing that really came up was like I said earlier, Animal Crossing. So it seems like for the last 12 months, yeah, it's been pretty quiet. And I don't know if that would have been the case whether or not a pandemic happened, but either way, that hasn't been a problem for any other console because there's obviously more than just Nintendo making games for it. Because I'm looking at the top 100 games, and most of them are ports or indie games, which is cool and all if that's your thing, but if you're the hardcore type, you aren't really going to enjoy your console very much if you're not getting, say, Assassin's Creed on it, or if you're not getting Fallout on it, or you're not getting like any of the major like stuff that comes from like Ubisoft, Bethesda, Square. Like I think actually Square, most of Square stuff's been getting there, but it's just there's a lot of stuff that you're missing out on. And I think I noticed that a lot of Switch users, if they do have the money to afford it, they tend to have like okay PCs as well. Because they find something else with Steam to at least be able to play like some stuff. Because it just seems like the Switch, as good of a console as it can be, is still limited by the fact that if you want to play the biggest games of the year, you maybe get 1 to 3 opportunities every year that come straight from Nintendo because that's where they come from.
Yeah, it's almost better just as like a good secondary console.
And I don't want to make it sound like I'm shitting on Nintendo because I really, really do believe that they're probably, if not without saying probably, they're probably the best games company out there in terms of what they pump out. The problem is because it's just them, it's in shorter supply and it takes longer to come out. Because they do take the time to perfect their stuff. They don't just throw everything out the door. Like, when's the last time you can remember a game coming up from Nintendo, like a first-party Nintendo game, that was a mess?
That was a mess or not good?
That was a mess. Because, I mean, like, quality is never the issue with them, and that means it takes time.
That's true.
I mean, you might not like certain games, but in terms of what they pump out, usually you know it's going to be working condition, and if it's the kind of thing you're into, you're probably going to end up liking it.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some duds. Like, I know, like, Mario Party was good, but, like, poorly, like, just not developed enough. I know the latest Star Fox was kind of met with eh. So, like, I mean, they're not imperfect in terms of...
Yeah, they're not making, like, 10 out of 10 games, but they're not making 4 out of 10s. This is broken, like, Cyberpunk games. Still had to fit it in there.
Hit our quota. Funny enough, I'm actually going to start Cyberpunk this week. So I'm going to jump in and try it out.
I assume you're not playing it on PlayStation because it still ain't on the store.
I have a physical copy for the PS4 that I'm playing on my PS5. Oh. So I'm going to jump in, see how it is.
It'll probably be better than when I played it at launch because I'm sure it won't crash as much.
Yeah, well, my thought is they have the first major patch out, so I figure that'll cover most of the issues, and there should be another secondary patch soon.
Well, and the PS5 doesn't have frame dips, so
yeah,
you don't at least don't have to worry about that. If you were playing this on PS4, I'd be like, nah, you're still probably screwed.
No, I don't think I would play it on PS4. So, speaking of games that may have disappointed or that we didn't like, Adam, I want to get a hot take from you.
Uh-oh.
I want to ask already. I want to ask you, what is a franchise? Give me at least one franchise that everyone seems to love that doesn't stick with you. That you're kind of like, I don't see the hype.
Ooh, okay.
If you need a second, I can go first, but I just wanted to put this on your plate.
I guess the closest to an answer, because I don't know if there's actually a franchise out there that I've played that I don't like, that I've played enough games of to make it worth an opinion. Because otherwise, I could just be like, well, I think Resident Evil is not that great, but that's also because I don't like horror games. Probably the closest thing to that would be Uncharted. And that's only because I think the original trilogy is really not that much fun, but the fourth game is amazing. I'm not going to lie. Like, I played through the trilogy way back when I had no internet for about a month because I moved places. And it was the perfect time because apparently they couldn't get anybody in for a while. And I was like, okay, I need to get something offline. So I'm like, you know what? I see the Drake collection for PS4. Everybody keeps telling me, oh, Uncharted, especially Uncharted 2, greatest fucking game ever.
No,
I'm
it's
like,
Uncharted
you know
2
what?
is the best one.
I'll finally get around to it. Played it. Uncharted 1, I don't understand how anybody likes that game. I think it's an absolute clusterfuck of a mess.
Okay, I need to stop you right here. We need to talk about this. So we've got our topic of the show this week. So I am going to stand here and defend the Uncharted series because you, sir, have no taste.
That's probably true. I do like trash.
You insulted me with The Last of Us, and now you're coming after Uncharted. Just admit that you don't like Naughty Dog, and you have no taste, sir.
I did say I think Uncharted 4 is really awesome. So
no, sir, you cannot backpedal. You can't
sir.
backpedal now. No, there is no backpedaling. All right, so let's break this down.
Can I side pedal? Is that an option?
Sir, we need to talk. Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is in jeopardy right now. I am sorry for who I've brought to the table here. So let's break this down. Uncharted 1. What's your gripes?
I think especially with the original trilogy, and they got better as it got along, but the original game specifically is some of the dumbest AI in terms of its actual enemies and its spawning mechanics. I used to hate Call of Duty single player because you didn't just kill all the enemies, you just kept killing endless waves until you finally hit a checkpoint on the map. The problem is Uncharted is a cover-based shooter, so what do you generally do when you're getting shot at? You stand and take cover. So you sit behind something, you slowly shoot a few enemies down, and then hopefully they despawn. The problem is the game's like, no, you haven't moved up enough yet. You should move up. I'm like, but I don't want to die. Well, you should still move. But if I move, I'll get shot. Move. And I didn't like that because I would spend way too much time behind cover, constantly shooting stuff, and then another 10 enemies from the same tree just randomly appear. And over again, it became a shooting gallery to the point that I didn't really enjoy what I was playing anymore because I was playing the same combat over and over and over. Now, it's not to say that the platforming wasn't kind of fun. The story was okay at best. I really didn't get into the entire Nathan Drake character really until the fourth game. I think they finally really loosened up a lot by 4 because I don't know, for whatever reason it wasn't clicking. But 2 is better just because it got a little bit more on the...
we're starting with 1 because I need to defend 1.
Oh, okay. You're just gonna...
My neck is getting
down every
sore from the amount of shaking of my head I am doing at you, sir. So, no one is going to argue that Uncharted 1 is the best game. Even as an Uncharted fan myself, I would say Uncharted 1 is the weakest of them all. However, you need to remember that this came out in 2006, 2007? So it did some pretty incredible things. The story is fun. It's a fun story. You're going for the gold of you're trying to find El Goddamn Dorado. It is so much fun just going with Sully and Nate on this adventure. You're, racing bad guys, you're finding Nazi subs. It's awesome. And then the graphics at that time were amazing. Did you see the guy's pants when he went in the water? His pants got wet. That was unheard of. So, is it a flawed game? Yeah, maybe. But it's the beginning of a sequel at a launch title. It is great. It had its flaws. And I mean, in retrospect, yes, it probably doesn't hold up. But at the time, it was incredible.
That's the thing.
Now tell me what's wrong with Uncharted 2.
I didn't play it when it first came out. I played it after.
Well, that's your fault.
I clearly played a bunch of much better games.
That is your fault, sir.
It's Uncharted's fault for not getting my attention.
Tell me what wrong opinions you have about Uncharted 2.
The villain. It's dumb.
Yeah, I agree. I don't remember what the villain is.
That's mostly my ire with 2. It's I feel like that game was trying way too hard to be like Indiana Jones. It's here's the evil foreign villain. I'm like, guys, oh my god, that's so cliche as shit.
Adam, are you not paying attention? It's trying to be Indiana Jones. It is Indiana Jones. It's basically Indiana Jones, the game.
And
Before
then I will
they
say
just couldn't
too,
get the licensing rights to it.
I will not lie though when I say that I think a large part of why I also don't like it as much. Like here, okay, I'm gonna do this for you just for the sake of it. I think that 1 is a 5 out of 10. I think 2 is a 7 out of 10, and I think 3 is a 6 out of 10. They're all average or above average.
No.
4 I put at a 9. I love 4, but I think I will admit that I think a large part of why the trilogy also doesn't hit with me, it's because it comes in with the legend of John Henry's hammer,
Okay.
where I feel like it's coming in with the adulation and the platforming that everybody says like this is the best series ever, and I came in being like, okay, let me experience the best thing ever, and then playing it being like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't think has anyone ever argued it's the best platformer ever. I don't think anyone is. I think what people talk
Well,
about.
in my immediate group of friends, like almost everyone that I talked to, especially the ones that had a PS3 during that era, they all talk about Uncharted 2 being the best game they've ever played. So I had that in my head a lot.
Uncharted 3 is the best one of the original trilogy. So I wouldn't argue that Uncharted is the best game of all time. I wouldn't argue it's the best platformer of all time. But what it is, it's a perfect storm in the sense that it's got a good story that's fun. It's not original by any chance, but it is fun. It is entertaining. The characters are lovable. The shooting is good. Like it's not once again amazing, but it's accessible. It's good. Platforming is once again acceptable and good, and like graphically, like it hits like it doesn't hit anything like it doesn't fail like drop on anything. That being said, 2 is okay. I don't really remember much. I remember the train sequence, and I remember you fight the abominable snowman or yetis or something like that. I don't remember, which was kind of lame. Now Uncharted 3. What's your beef with Uncharted 3?
Uh, I don't know if I necessarily had a beef with that game. I just don't remember much of it. There wasn't anything that like was rememberable to me apart from it just being obviously female villains this time, which was a relatively unusual for that era. But in terms of like, I couldn't tell you a damn thing about the story at this point.
Now you see, I loved Uncharted 3. This one is my favorite of the original 3. It might even be on top of Uncharted 4, just because of like the fun. Like there's a little bit of finality to Uncharted 4, and I felt like towards the end it was a little long, but Uncharted 3 was great. You're tracking down basically Lawrence of Arabia. He found like this ancient city. You end up getting there, and it follows all the steps and the tropes of Uncharted, and then you get there fighting these monsters like you typically would, and then you realize later on, spoilers alert, you're hallucinating from drinking some water, and like it was just a really cool way of just shifting it so it wasn't as it seemed like it was falling down the same rabbit hole, but you kind of get a sideline. I loved it. I thought Uncharted 3 was fantastic and the best one. So, how dare you, sir?
I dare. Oh, I dare.
All right.
I think well, honestly, like 4 also had the help too of it being on a much more modern console, so it was smoother. I also do think that 4 just did the best job of pacing. I really do think that every time you got put somewhere else, like it balanced out the carnage and the chaos of the shooting sections to platforming to stealth to getting enough cutscenes in there, and especially there was the one bit where you start out, I think, climbing a clock tower, and by the end of it, you're going nuts in a car in the middle of like these busy streets, just going absolutely crazy with a giant ass car chasing you and just destroying everything. Its set pieces were really, really well put together.
See, now this is the thing. I would argue that Uncharted 3 had better set pieces than Uncharted 4, because other than the major set piece, there's I think 2 major set pieces in Uncharted 4, and that's what you're talking about with the bell tower. And then I think the second one is like where you're in that city and like things are falling, like you're in the pirate city, I think, or whatever, and like it's kind of falling down a little bit.
No. There's like this bustling city that you kind of push your way through for a little while, and then it ends in a car chase at the end.
Yes.
The like pirate city where everything is starting to fall apart because they're all dilapidated buildings. That's a whole different one.
Yeah, no. I'm saying like those are the 2 major.
Oh, I thought you were. Never mind. I thought you were conflating
two
my first bit with that.
But those are like the only 2 major set pieces. Whereas if you look at something like Uncharted, Uncharted 3, you have the two that I can think of immediately off the top of my head are you have the sinking cruise ship, which is awesome, and then you have the one where you're hanging out of a cargo plane, which is once again awesome. And those are the only two that I can remember. I don't know. There must be more in Uncharted 3, but I remember those two distinctly, and I thought they were great.
I think probably the one thing too that really got me with Uncharted 4 is like I've played through all four of them, like I said, and I might have like chuckled at a couple of things, but I found the dialogue in 4 just was at its best. I felt like I actually felt the connections a lot better with everybody, especially Elena and Nate.
Yeah.
And then having the addition of, I think it's Sam, right? The brother Sam, right?
Yeah, Sam is in the four. Yeah, he's the brother.
Yeah. So like I did feel like there was a lot more of, you know how sometimes you feel like you know that these characters are supposed to be really tight knit together, but it sounds like they're talking at each other, not to each other. I really do feel like 4. I didn't feel like I was listening to a bunch of people in a audio booth, like just just talking their lines out. I felt like they were all just sitting at a table doing them.
Yeah.
So I think it made it really easy to get into that. And again, like I said, it probably had to do with the quality levels too, because I am a stickler for that sort of thing. I will admit, like for example, I'm a big Iron Maiden fan, music wise. I love listening to the newer albums a lot more than I like listening to the older ones, just because I think like the sound quality is a lot stronger. So it's not that I wouldn't put on Number of the Beast, but I also do really enjoy listening to, say, an album like Brave New World, just because like it's a little bit more modern. Like it just sounds better in headphones because you don't have, I guess, the older technology running. So I guess like the disadvantage that Uncharted 1 to 3 might have with me has to do with me not playing it when it came out, me having a bunch of people that were telling me how amazing it was, so I went in expecting 10 out of 10s and came out maybe with what I would have perceived as like 8s back then, but thinking, man, you guys amped me up way too much for this, and this was like really disappointing, so maybe it could be part of that. And then obviously because since the technology has evolved over then, and I got used to, say, playing much better looking games and much smoother games on the PS4, that now I go back and play a PS3 game, and I'm like, it's a little bit rough.
Fair enough.
So there could be some bias in there. But I will say Uncharted 2's villain is dumb as fuck, and there's nothing that you can do with a remaster on that one.
Once again, I don't remember who the hell it was. I just remember fighting Sasquatch.
It was what was his fucking name?
It was some dude. Like I know there's some like generic gruffy military white dude, but like you end up just fighting.
Well, wasn't it like a Russian dude or some sort of like Slavic?
Probably.
Russia's didn't it start with like a Z or something?
I don't know. Russia's main export is villains. Everyone knows that.
Well, if you play Call of Duty games, yeah, for sure.
I just meant like pop culture wise, the main export of Russia is villains for.
Well, that's because apparently nobody in North America has the balls to actually do China.
Well, yeah. But the Russians are also just more fun.
They tried to do it in North Korea once, and Homefront was absolutely horrible. So
I liked Homefront.
I liked Homefront for about an hour until I realized, oh, that's all they had.
It's a 2-hour game.
Yeah, and that's all they had.
So you liked half of it.
The first half of Homefront, where it's like really horrifying and like a realistic representation of what a genocide would look like, yeah, it's pretty damn good and it hits hard. But then it just tries to be like general like military shooter game, and you're like, well, let's stop being fun. And then they tried a second time, and we don't talk about that because nobody liked it.
All right, yeah. So Adam, I called you out on your your hated favorite game kind of thing. I think for me, it's gonna be probably controversial. I don't know how you're gonna feel about it, but I know there's people who love this series. And for me, it's Metal Gear. I don't get Metal Gear at all.
I hate stealth.
Okay, so yeah, this is gonna be far less.
Metal Gear Solid 5 is really, really good because it lets me do stupid shit. Whereas I remember playing Metal Gear 2 and getting so mad because I basically have a half a second window to pass this guy. Otherwise, I'm done.
Yeah. So
also, it's a lot better to play these games now in full 3D where you have better aim than playing in like PS2 era where you don't really have the best first-person aiming. Especially like you go back and play Resident Evil games of old. God, they're a bitch to control.
Oh, I dropped them as soon as I felt the tank controls. I'm like, I'm not doing this. No, for me, so my history with Metal Gear is I remember the first Metal Gear on the PlayStation 1. I never had a PlayStation 1, but I remember one of my dad's friends had it, and we were hanging at his house one time, and I was playing Metal Gear, and I'm like, this seems cool, but it was way too hard for me. Like, I struggled with it, and I wasn't playing it long enough to really get good, so I was like, this seems kind of cool, and I love stealth games. Like Splinter Cell, Assassin's Creed, which I know once again is not really stealth anymore, but like your Hitmans, your Splinter Cells, all those kind of stealth games are my jam.
I have no patience. I am so impatient. I'll sit there playing Hitman and being like, come on, just go in the fucking room. I want to hurt you.
No, so for me, like the first main entry I played into Metal Gear was Metal Gear Solid 4, and that might have something to do with it. Like I was playing it and I had no freaking idea what the hell was going on.
I think most people that still play Metal Gear religiously still don't know what's going on half the time.
And this is the thing, I don't get what the appeal is, because like there are better stealth games from a stealth like tactical espionage style game.
Honestly, I think it's the mystique and the kind of weird charm that Kojima has with his games.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, sure, there are better stealth games, but do those stealth games let you walk around in a cardboard box?
No. And that's like I was trying to watch it, and it just like the story is just so convoluted, and it's like I had no idea what's going on, and I'm reading wikis and I have no idea what's going on, and it's so self-indulgent in the sense that like, okay, I beat a mission, like, and I'll play it, and I'm like, okay, I finished this mission, I'm just gonna watch this quick cutscene and go to bed, or I'm gonna watch this quick cutscene before I have to go, and it's like a 45-minute cutscene, like.
Yeah, that infamous cutscene.
I don't even know which one you're talking about, because they're all like notoriously long. Like it's a half an hour. Like, okay, hey, you beat this level. Now watch this episode of a TV show. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I don't know what's going on, which is the problem.
I mean, convoluted stories don't bother me. I'm a big Kingdom Hearts guy, and not only is Kingdom Hearts complicated, but like because of their naming structure, you play Kingdom Hearts 3, you're thinking, oh, I only got to play 2 more games to go back. Nope. No. There are like 11 games on 17 different systems. Yes, I know the numbers don't match up, but that's pretty much how Kingdom Hearts works.
Yeah, it's basically if you got the kid at the back of the math class to, do fractions.
And even then, like, there's a channel called that most people know if you're a gamer, called Video Game Donkey, and he's done both explanations of Metal Gear's story and Kingdom Hearts, and it sounds like he's making half of it up, and the reality is he's like 95% being truthful with it. That's just how off the wall it is.
Yeah. And then so I was like, okay, I played Metal Gear Solid 4, that didn't go well. And I'm like, okay, everyone seems to be loving this Metal Gear Solid 5. Let's give this another shot. And once again, what the hell is that game? Like, I'm playing and it seems kind of cool, but it gets very repetitive very fast. Sneak into this base, steal something, extract it, go do that again. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And then there's like, the Lone Star Texas Ranger guy with like the mask and I don't know, robots and whatever. It's stupid. And I was like, I'm not doing this.
You can have a dog and he'll have a knife in his mouth and he'll slice people's throats up. And then you can pat him like the good boy he is.
I mean, I'm not saying there's not merits to the game. I'm just saying, I don't get it. I don't know. I don't see what the appeal is. I'm glad other people like it. Like, good for you. But it's just, I don't see what... I can see having like a small cult, but I don't understand the cult of Kojima and how big it is. Like, it's something that just doesn't resonate with me. Cool guy. Like, I'm not trying to disparage him, but I don't get it.
I see how it is. So you can understand why people really like Metal Gear Solid. But as soon as one guy says, I don't like Uncharted, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Hold the phone here. We got to have a long-ass conversation about this.
It's called making content, Adam. We're making content.
I feel hurt. I feel hurt.
You feel slighted? You feel targeted?
I feel hurt.
I'm sorry. 8 episodes in, we're already starting to have strife and conflict in this group.
We could do so much worse.
No, I just want to make sure that you're right. Like it hurts me to know that someone has existed this long with such wrong opinions.
Ooh, all right, well, let's finish with one more bad opinion.
All right, let's go.
What is one game that you think that a lot of people put as one of the greatest games out there that you think is not even remotely good?
I'm trying to think.
Like, for example, my pick is number 5 all time on Metacritic's all-time scores.
Okay, which one is it?
It is GTA 4.
Okay. Yep.
I think GTA 4 is not only not a great game, I think it's a bad game. It controls horribly, The music in that game, which is a big part of those games as well, is the soundtrack is god awful. There is almost no good character in that game because they're all assholes, and quite frankly, a lot of the missions aren't even that fun. And when it doesn't control like the driving is so bad in that game. I've seen a lot of people defend it, being like, "Oh, it's more realistic." I'm not playing a Grand Theft Auto game for realism. I get to have a rocket launcher and blow people up and not go to jail over it. I'm not playing for realism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that argument. It kind of lost what the point of Grand Theft Auto was in that.
Actually, I tell a lie. It's both number 5 and number 3 because PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions are on there.
That's how you get it. No, I can see your argument, and I think they corrected that with 5 when they got a little bit more zany again, where they're like, "Yeah, go be an asshole in American City."
Now, I will say, I'm not saying it as a detriment that all the characters are assholes, because they are. They're criminals. They're supposed to be bad people. But my definition of asshole is I don't want to hear you speak.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's a wrestling term called heat, which basically means like somebody's hot at you or somebody's angry at you. But there's a term called go away heat, which is not I'm mad at you, it's I don't want to fucking look at you.
Yeah, it's not you're
annoying
person,
me. Like get off my
screen. You're an annoying person. Yeah, you're annoying.
And it's not just Roman. Everybody goes after Roman because, hey, cousin, you want to go bowling? No, it's literally the main character I can't associate with either because I think he's an annoying piece of shit.
Yeah. So for me, I've got the obvious one I would default to is Breath of the Wild. But we've talked about that, so that I'm not going to rehash that argument. If you want to hear my opinions on it, go check out, I think it was, episode 5?
You're asking me to have a memory. That's a bad choice, sir.
You know what? Go listen to all their episodes until you get to the one where I, crap on Legend of Zelda.
Now that's how you sell a podcast.
There we go. We're doing it. No, for me, I think just to make it a little bit... I'm not going to say it's a bad game. I'm going to say it's just an overrated game. Red Dead Redemption 2. And
okay.
I'm not trying to take away the technical achievements. That game is gorgeous. That game is amazing. It's definitely a technical achievement, as is Breath of the Wild. The problem is Red Dead Redemption has great moments of fun, but it has some of the most weirdest, decisions I've seen in a video game. So
the last 25% of the story is all over the place.
Yeah, so here's the thing, guys. Spoilers ahead. If you haven't played Red Dead Redemption, I don't know, come back when you're done. So, Red Dead Redemption 2. Awesome game, absolutely, you feel like a cowboy. The problem is that they went too far into that realism. So they were trying to be like, we're going to make our game realistic. Great. But the fact that I need to, open up, every cupboard, and then I need to pick up each item individually, is there ever a time that I don't want bullets where I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to leave these bullets here. No, I don't want this health pack. I'm going to leave it here. Don't make me confirm when I want to pick up items. Generally, there are very few times where I'm like, no, I don't want this item. And so for me to have to go in and manually sort of do each motion and take care of my weapons and it was just so much tacked on stuff to make it feel realistic that it took away from that fun of me being a cowboy and shooting stuff. That's what I wanted to do.
There is a general issue with open world games where there is so much dead time because it's walking around or it's picking up loot. Like Ghost of Tsushima that I'm still playing, and it drives me crazy that if I really want to get everything, I have to go over every dead body that I have and check if they have anything I want. And sometimes they don't. But I spend this extra 30 seconds going to every corpse that I just killed just to see if there's something there.
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of time that you spend not playing the game, which is not fun.
Yeah. And so that's one of the issues I have with Red Dead. The other issue I have is that I find the gameplay, the missions are fun, but they're formulaic. It's, hey, we're going to ride out to this place. We're going to go for a horse ride. We're going to ride our horsies, go to this place, check something out. It's going to end up in a shootout, and then we end back up at the base. And you're gonna hear what the hell's the main character? Not Arthur, but the other guy. He has a goddamn plan.
Dutch.
That's right. Dutch has a goddamn plan, and I didn't care about the settlement building. The people were cool, but I never really connected with them too much. And then the last part of the game was just I felt a lot. There's
a specific mission where you just suddenly start helping out some Native Americans, and it's so out of place. It completely. Like you're literally about to go on a revenge quest and it just stops.
Hmm.
Like can you imagine like can you imagine an action movie like say Taken, where Liam Neeson has his daughters taken? Can you imagine that where like
Halfway through, he starts
he's
driving Uber.
he's halfway and then he just sees a lost puppy on the side of the road and the next 30 minutes of the movie is him trying to find the owner to that puppy.
Exactly.
It just
Yeah.
it's not like I hated that part, but it's so out of place that it kind of took away from the emotion that I was currently feeling waiting to get my revenge.
Yeah, I completely agree. I forgot about that aspect, and you're right. That is a part that like annoys me. And then,
But you're right on the writing stuff too. They could have done so much with just cutscenes and just reduce the amount of time you spend, because you can do all that talking in a 1 to 2 minute cutscene than you can in a 7 to 10 minute horse ride that has only 30 seconds of dialogue, and then a bunch of it is just dead time.
Yeah, and I think like, and just mission variety, like it just became go to this shooting gallery, do a shootout, and then go home. And it like I kind of wish that they had done more, like more variety.
It didn't help too that they had a multiplayer mode, so you know some of the time went to that rather than polishing the single player and kind of getting some more stuff in there.
Well, I don't even think that they needed more stuff in there or anything like that. I think that they just needed to
Oh,
like,
they definitely needed more stuff. There's so much part of the map that there's no reason to go anywhere. There's so much nothing to do.
once again, and
It's there's never a more oxymoronic word in so much nothing, but that's literally what a lot of those games like Red Dead are. There's so much nothing in it.
I think this is once again the idea of like scale, and I think Red Dead had too big of a scope or of a scale. Like, go
Yeah,
for a little,
I don't think touting how big your map is very telling to anything.
but I'm not even saying just that. Like a big map, but like if there's nothing to do in that map, that's an issue. Like if you have a big map that has a lot of stuff, but like I remember, games when I was younger, and you could sort of figure out and remember where everything was, and like you became familiar with the map because it was small enough that you could remember. Like, okay, here are all the key points. Like I remember playing, like, so like not the original, but like Deus Ex Invisible War, and like I remember the streets and where everything was, and could like navigate through it. And it's just getting to the point where I can't. The last gripe that I had with Red Dead 2 was that like the last 10 hours where you're playing as um,
Playing as John Marston.
John Marston, thank you. Like I felt that I just didn't care. Like, cool.
It was clearly meant to be a nod to people who played the original. I don't think it was almost like a DLC when you really think about it.
Yeah, I guess, but like for me, it felt bloated, and I just like I didn't care because you're playing with like you're just doing these side missions, like build a house. I'm like I don't care. Like I get it, and go talk to the government.
There could have been like a thing at like the end of Arthur's story, just being like, hey, this is now like a special like bonus like section of the game. Like you could cut it off there.
You know what?
Like
It was big
you
enough.
know how like some games will have like new game plus. This could have been like, hey, this part of the story's finished. You've unlocked this story if you want to play that, right? Because then at least people know, okay, this is the end of this thing, and they don't feel like they have to go further.
You know what they could have done is they could have just loaded it as free DLC. Like think about the publicity if they had said, "Hey, we're gonna drop a 10-hour DLC."
That is true.
Even for free, because I mean, like everyone, like they gave it away for free anyways when they sold the game. Like,
yeah, now that you think about it, people would have paid money for an extra 10 hours with John.
Right? But even if you said like the publicity said like, "Hey, month or two in, we're gonna drop this single player DLC, for free. You can play as John Marston. You see how like as a bridge to the next game." And I think that you would have gotten amazing like publicity, because one of the things that people are kind of tired with is that Rockstar games do not have that single player DLC that they used to have. Like for all you're complaining about GTA 4, and I'm not saying you're wrong, like they had a bunch of single player campaign DLCs there.
Well, that's because they weren't making millions upon millions of dollars every month on shark cards.
For sure, I get why they're doing it, but think of it like how much of a throwback to the old Rockstar that they would be, where it's like, hey, we're gonna make this available for you for free. Enjoy a what's the word? Not like a prelude to the original.
Like a
Red
prequel.
Dead. Exactly. And I think that would have been awesome.
But we're also expecting multi-million, if not multi-billion-dollar corporations to actually, think of, fun things.
True. Yeah. But yeah, so for me, that's probably my popular game that I just don't connect with.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Adam, I think that's pretty good episode.
I think we've done our first part of the rainy days, or whatever we decide to call it. Rainy day just seems like the good thing. I know it's not raining outside because it's not. Well, I guess it's warm enough that it could be raining now. It's
Depends
still
where you're
technically
living. Maybe
winter.
it is raining right now.
I mean, wherever you are, maybe it is. If it is, I hope you're enjoying that.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be nice to have these sort of just casual conversation episodes, and I look forward to them.
Well, we can't always be flooded with news every week, and I know there's gonna be some people being like, "Oh, there were things to talk about." I'm like, guys, go on like the game subreddit, sort by top this week, and tell me that like 90% of what's on that list are like stories that you can't do, and there are stories that you can talk about for more than 2 minutes.
Exactly.
There's a lot of stories, but there's also a lot of nothing you can really expand upon. It's like, oh, this game's getting ported. Oh, this game's still in the works, or oh, this thing's like there's nothing. Like, I guess the closest thing would have been ZeniMax, and Microsoft, which is something that it's already been reported. It's just a confirmation.
Yeah.
And it really, in the end, is just like, okay, well, it's just this company possibly having exclusive titles on this thing instead of being for everybody. Which, simply put, yeah, Bethesda's going to have some exclusives. But do you really think Fallout and the next Elder Scrolls is going to be exclusive to one console with the amount of money they would be making otherwise?
Shh. Save that episode. That might be next week if there's no other new gaming news.
That's true. I'll make sure I have 5 other hot takes for that as well, since I'm constantly on call for these.
Yeah. I'll keep putting you in the hot seat. All right. Well, thank you so much, Adam. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been episode 8 of the PixelPlay podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com. We are also on Instagram at PixelPlay. We'd love for you guys to leave feedback, reviews, subscribe, depending wherever you're listening to us. We are on Spotify, Anchor. We're on most podcast feeds. I think we're still waiting on Apple.
It's weird because it says that we should have been approved and we aren't. So now I'm trying to get a hold of Anchor, being like, "Hey guys, help."
To be honest, I tried calling Steve Jobs. He hasn't returned my calls, so
there might be a reason for that.
I'll have to look into it. Yeah, I keep calling him, but he's not returning my calls. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
I mean, to make a really bad pun, it might be a dead line.
Oh. Ooh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to leave comments, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Bye for now.